Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. I'm Vito Scarnecchia, and I have with me Patrick O'Malley McAndrew and Jay Bhakta, who is the CEO. Are you a CEO?
Yes.
The major cog in financial literacy and emotional intelligence. And what's the name of your company?
It's called Base Case and Build.
Base Case and Build. And so Patrick brought me to you, and I'm really intrigued in this because I think we're really falling short in this. Why don't you give us a quick elevator speech about how you got into this?
I spent 20 years in the tax industry, so I got to see the emotional and financial behaviors of thousands of people over that time. One of the biggest revelations I had was that no amount of free money from the government was going to help people improve their financial situations. As they kept coming in year after year, making the same mistakes over and over again, never getting out of debt. I realized that the only thing that would really make a difference in their lives is educating them on what's not being taught in traditional education system, which is emotional intelligence and financial literacy. I consider both of them equally important. You could be emotionally intelligent and be broke, and you could be financially literate and be wealthy and be emotionally wrecked. So we created two pillars in the program where we teach both of those concepts. Over the past so many years, I've been going to masterminds, coaching programs, and just learning quite a bit of stuff from experts in the field. And I completely rewired my way of thinking. And one of the thoughts that kept coming to me was, if I would have known this sooner, I would have not made that decision. So I would have taken a different path. But obviously, you can't go back and change what you've done in the past. But so I was like, well, how can I teach this to my kids? At that time, my son was 14 years old, and I want to teach him all these principles and concepts so he doesn't make the same mistakes I made. However, if I just start talking to my son about all these concepts, he's going to be like, why is dad lecturing me again? And I was like, I had to figure out a way to relay this to him without it coming across as I'm coming at him. And he's like, why is dad telling me all this stuff for no reason? Because he hasn't explored anything yet. So I was like, I journaled for about 4 to 6 months trying to figure out a way to get this across realistically, not just say I'm going to do it. I was like, I actually want to make sure that he's able to apply it. And I was like, well, why don't I get a group of kids together and teach a new concept every week? So when I first started, I was just teaching emotional intelligence, self-awareness, awareness of what's going on around you. So you're not reactive to what's happening, you're proactive and you can control the situations. And it worked out really well. The kids were learning new things that they don't get to learn in school, and I was tasking them to go talk to their parents about what they learned. And the parents loved it because now the kids are approaching them instead of the parents lecturing the kids. And from there it just kept growing and it kept building from there, and that's how it got started.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, really quickly with the kids, what setting do you do it at? Do you do it in your house? Do you do it like at a retail mall, or do you go to schools? How does that work?
Yeah, so I have kids from all over the country. So we do virtual calls where we teach, a emotional intelligence concept every month and a financial literacy concept every month. And we also have in-person events locally here in Arizona that we do where we teach. There's a cash flow game that we play where we combine what we teach, the principles and foundation stuff, and tie it in with the game. So now they get to interact and gamify it and have fun doing it that way. So we have in-person workshops that we do locally here, and we have virtual calls for those that, live, elsewhere.
That's cool. And when you say cash flow, it's not the quadrant cash flow from guy Richard Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor
It is,
Dad.
it is because,
Wow,
yeah,
that's
because
cool.
when we talk about financial literacy, it's not just about money management and budgeting, and there's a lot more to it. There's an ultimate goal of reaching financial freedom, financial stability, and that game does a good job of it. But there's a lot of gaps as far as the emotional side of things that needs to be tied along with that journey. So
Yeah,
we take our concepts and tie it with the game, and it works out really well, and the kids have a lot of fun.
yeah. I played
That's
that 20 years ago. It's a great
uh,
game. Really opened my eyes up to a lot of different things where you understand the value of what money can do for you, the
Yep.
power of what money can do for you. But you're right. If you look at what Kiyosaki says, it's all about just making money. It's just, he's like a bull in a china shop, right? And a lot of people like him, a lot of people don't like him because he's just unfiltered. And you're bringing into that mindset of, like, even if you have kids, if you have a family that has a ton of money, right? And how do you raise that child to not be a spoiled brat? That's got to be a major question for you, right?
Yep. Yep. And that's a big problem with, especially with our generation. We're creating this generational wealth for kids. And I mean, I already seen it, like I said, with thousands of people that come in, that money is not the answer, right? There's a whole different element to it that needs to be applied and learned, which is the emotional intelligence side of it. So they don't wreck themselves and they have a purpose. And it's because when someone's handed something, it's usually not the best situation, especially if they're not taught the other stuff.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, my aunt gave me a 1976 Honda Accord hatchback, and I treated it like shit because I didn't have to struggle for it, and I didn't have to work for it. And it was a good lesson for me when it just petered out, because I never took care of it. I didn't change the oil. I didn't do anything to it. I barely limped it along. And um, the lesson I learned was, if you give somebody something, they're not going to appreciate it as much as if you had to struggle for it. So my kids all have their own car and they all pay for it. They all maintain it. I harp on them about having to change their oil, but they're responsible for that, right? And I told them, I said, I could buy you all brand new cars, but you wouldn't appreciate it. You would run it into the ground. And it's not because of you, it's because I know me, and I know me raising you. It's human nature.
Yeah, totally.
So,
and I was going to say, you said something when you opened up, Jay, about, I can't remember the phrase you used. It was perfect. I really loved it. You said, you could be emotionally smart but financially broken, or wealthy but what did you say? Could you say that again?
Yeah, I mean, so one of the things I noticed when I was teaching this, because I had kids transitioning from high school to college, is that they were emotionally intelligent, but they had no financial literacy skills. So you could be emotionally intelligent, but be broke. And you could be wealthy financially, you could have generational wealth, but you could be emotionally wrecked. So,
Emotionally
both,
wrecked.
both pillars are important.
That's right. No, that's so true. One of the challenges I've had in my now 20 plus year career in financial services, as well, being a financial planner, is trying to get people to understand that they have a relationship with money. Right. There's a relationship there that started a long time ago when you were a small child. That relationship in your family and how money was treated affects you now. And and so I think you're spot on in hitting a lot of these things. You hit it from both sides, and that's really cool. That's really awesome. So, and I think you were running several tax offices, right, in the Phoenix area, or greater Phoenix area, and then switched into this. I'm just curious, like, what made you, like, work, like, especially the emotional side? How did you decide to tie that in? Like, how did that come up? I can see how, with your background, you can see, oh, financial literacy seems like it makes sense. I'm just curious how the emotional side came into your mind and how you decided to bring that to the table.
Yeah, it's a concept, closer over more, that I learned, where what is it that I really want? And most people don't take the time to define what it is that they want in life. They're constantly chasing more. And when I was in 20 years in the tax business, which is great, it gave me a great start, got me financially set. When it comes to taxes, it's a reliable business, death and taxes, right? But it was draining my time, energy, and all my resources. I mean, it's a seasonal business, so half the year I'm uh, nonstop working, telling my family I'll see you in 6 months, and then 6 months I'm there. But you can't be a good father. You can't be a good husband for half the year, right? It sounds great, but you can't just show up for half the year and think that's going to work. And I did that for a long time. Even the 6 months that I'm free, the upcoming tax season is always on my mind, and then I'm recovering from tax season. So there's it's actually, you're drained even more than 6 months, really, but, I realized when me and my wife sat down, we talked about what are the things that we really want in life, what's the most valuable, most important things. And then once we defined it, then you could take the steps to get closer to it. And I realized that as financially lucrative as a tax business was, I had 6 offices at the time, that it was not bringing me closer to the things that I want in life, and I had to make a decision. And, obviously I didn't just sell all my businesses. I made sure that my barbell was still balanced. Like, I'm fine. I'm still financially stable and have reliable with all my investments. And I knew that, hey, if I took the tax businesses out of the picture, is my barbell still balanced? And it was, and it was a much easier decision for me to move on from it. And then, when I started this, it was more of a hobby when I started it, and it just became a full-time thing because I just saw the benefits of it and the feedback I was getting from parents and the referrals, and it just sounded like the next thing that I needed to do.
That's cool.
So it started off as a side hustle and it just replaced your income, and you're probably not making as much money right now, but it doesn't matter because you're making a decent living, or you're probably making hand over fist. I don't know. I didn't ask you, but the balance is the most important thing, right? I remember taking a Dale Carnegie class, and it was a sales class, and they had this one image of spinning plates, right? And you could probably walk into this, but it's your family, it's your livelihood, it's your hobbies, it's your spirituality, it's all these different things that you have to do as you grow into an adult. You have to learn how to spin multiple plates, and when you're out of balance, or your barbell visual, it's something where if you're not spending quality time on that dish is going to fall off that pole and you're going to break it, and something's got to give, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I learned that off when I was in my 30s, I think. I wish I'd learned that earlier.
Yeah. And I do love that barbell example. It's a very easy concept for somebody to grasp. That's good. That's very good.
I mean, just zooming out and looking at the barbell is what helped me move on, to know that I'm still going to be okay if I take this decision, right?
Yeah.
Because it's hard to move on for something you've been doing for 20 years, because you think, oh, I don't want to go back to the lifestyle when I was growing up. I don't want to be broke again. You have those thoughts come into your mind, and you realize a second, if you zoom out and take a look at where you're at, I mean, I'm more than, in a good position financially to be able to do something better and leave an impact somewhere in my life.
I think that's the big key right there. You're actually helping people understand their relationship with money, which is huge, because I can tell you that I have a poor relationship. I have a fear of lack when you talk about money. If you wanted me to describe it, I would call it fear of lack. And I was just talking to my buddy coming here. I was at a point in my life where I had to make that decision if I was going to stay in real estate or not, because real estate's like this. It's like a roller coaster, right? You're feast or famine, just like you're 6 months on, 6 months off with me. And I had no control over that until I got to the point where I was like, I just had to visualize that I deserve the business. I am okay with it. I understand what I'm going to charge. I know what I'm going to make. I have a book of business that's coming towards me. And at that time I didn't. I was visualizing it. I was going, this is how it has to be, because there's no way for me to do it. And I could pretty much turn on the spigot and the universe will bring me more business. It's because I believe it. It's because I know that my process is right. I know that I deliver a good service, and I know that I can give better service for my clients. And just the other day, I was talking about it with my buddy. I was driving down the street, going to the gym so I can play with the barbells. And and I was like, you know what? I could use another listing. I'm ready for another listing. And I said that to myself and to the universe. And late last night at 1:01 a.m., I was asleep. I got a call on my phone, and it was my buddy giving me a referral saying, hey, my
Nice.
next door neighbor wants to sell their house. And then I'm like, wow, just imagine that. When you're ready for it and you believe in yourself, it's not cockiness or confidence. It's just you believe in yourself. You believe that service, you believe you deserve it,
That's
and
right.
you can do it. So
Yeah.
It might be a
Yeah,
spiritual thing. It might be like the secret or what have you, but it's definitely a thing that helps bring
There's
that
definitely
business to you.
power in manifesting.
Yeah.
There's something there for sure when you manifest things.
I think it totally speaks
Manifest.
to the emotional intelligence parts that you're talking about, Jay, as you're bringing into it, because it's some people think this stuff's woo woo or whatever, but however, it works. And I know I can testify to that stuff too, and it's really cool. I'm curious, when you first decided to, like, you know what, I'm going to teach this, start with my kids. So how did you get other kids to want to be involved? I'm guessing that's how you did it, right? You said, I can't lecture to my child. I got to do it in a way that he'll receive it. Was it bringing other kids into it that made it palatable for him, or how did you overcome that?
Yeah, I was journaling about it for like 4 to 6 months about how to structure this, how to do this, and then I just mentioned it because I went to a lot of coaching and masterminds, and I just mentioned it to some of the people that were there, and I was like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this, and then they were right away like, hey, if you do this, we're putting our kids in. And so
Wow.
I didn't even have to sell or recruit anybody. I just so then I wanted to start small. I'm a firm believer in micro stepping your way into it. Not trying to go too big in the beginning. So I started with 4 kids, and it just worked out really well. And I was only going to do one cohort, and my wife was like, well, you can't forget your 10-year-old daughter. And at the time, I was like, well, she's only 10 years old. How much of this stuff can really apply to her in her life? And she's like, well, why don't you just sit down and talk to her about her day at school? So I started digging in a little bit deeper, and I started asking her questions about her day. And I was like, I couldn't believe how much drama even a 10-year-old goes through in school. So then I realized that she needs it just as
girl,
much.
maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, she needs it just as much as the older kids. So then I
Yeah.
expanded the age to 10 and up. And then it worked, it worked out really well. Even with the age difference between the kids. We had older kids, younger kids. Some of the older kids, just hearing their stories helps the younger kids relate to it, and me teaching in a way that the younger kids can understand helps the older kids understand it. And then some of the older kids were even becoming leaders to the younger ones. So it was a really good dynamic, and it's been working ever since.
That's awesome. Can you give me an example of like what maybe one or two of the emotional intelligence lessons, if you will? What's that kind of look like?
Yeah, that word gets thrown around a lot. So people are like, well, what is emotional intelligence, and how does that actually really apply to me and my kids, right? So, I mean, so let me just quickly define my definition of emotional intelligence. It's intelligence is the ability to get what you want. So if you have enhanced your ability to get what you want, you have become more emotionally intelligent, right? And we talk about the next step is learning, right? So if you've increased your ability to get what you want, then you have to change your behavior to get what you want. So that's learning when you change your behavior. And then finally, the last step is wealth. What's true wealth? True wealth is when you have all the things that you want. So if you have the ability to get what you want, you change your behavior to get what you want, then you could get the things that you want in life. So that's my definitions of intelligence. And when I teach the kids, I'm telling them, like, hey, well, any concept that we teach, we're enhancing your ability to get what you want. If it's through communication with your friends, if it's leadership, if it's your own emotional behavior or reactions or your anger or whatever you're dealing with, if you're able to change your behavior to get what you want, now you have become more intelligent, right? Mm-hmm. So an example was earlier I talked about closer over more. Most like for example, the way I could put it with the kids is, hey, name one thing that you want right now that you value most. And like one of the kids might have said, oh, I want to find a job, or I want to be better at basketball, or I want to learn this skill in karate and become a black belt, right? So now that you've defined what it is that you want, then you could take the steps to move closer to it, and then also define all the things that's keeping you from getting to your goal, right? What's all the more of the things that don't matter? So it could be video games, it could be hanging out with your friends for no reason at the mall, or losing focus, scrolling through Instagram and social media. So there's a lot of things that can keep you from reaching your goals. And so I tell them, hey, put this concept in your bag, and every decision that you make, is it bringing you closer or are you chasing more, right? So that's an example of emotional intelligence.
Got it. Got it. Closer over more. So is this what I'm doing? Is this action I'm taking right now bringing me closer to what I want, or is it just giving me more stuff to do? That kind of like,
Yep.
Okay, got it. Closer or more like that. That's good.
And we talk about changing your environment. We talk about making good excuses, the stories that you tell yourself to justify why you haven't accomplished something. I mean, that's like, it's, you could be a good storyteller, but it also can keep you from, growth, right? It could keep you stalled in life. So, making good excuses is one. There's, asymmetric bets to the upside. There's empathy, there's receptivity, there's restraint. There's a lot of concepts that kids can learn, and they're all powerful in their own different ways.
So you basically identify what a potential problem is, have them acknowledge it. So it's kind of like if you have a kid with emotional issues, they have to figure out what their triggers are so that they can identify it and acknowledge it and get past it. And it's like the same thing with fear. So I have a small video editing business for real estate agents. It's not my retirement goal. It's just I'm doing it because it kind of just rolled into it. And when I interview people, they come in and say, I want to do video for marketing, right? To get more business. And, the number of questions I ask them are, how many have you done so far? Do you have your YouTube channel up? All this other stuff. And 50% of the people I interview, 50%, I haven't done a video yet. It's the fear. It's the fear of getting past it, or the fear of being successful, or the fear of what happens if I fail. And what I've always coached my kids on is I will applaud your failure. I want you to go out there and try, because if you fail, that means at least you did it. I don't care if you failed at tying your shoe or failed at color guard or whatever. Don't be afraid to try it, because what's the worst thing that's going to happen, right? And I guess that's the same thing as what you're saying, right?
Absolutely. Like, usually when you have fear about something, you're telling yourself a good story about why not to do it.
That's a good excuse.
That's a good excuse, right?
Yeah.
So, sometimes you just don't have the belief in yourself that you're able to do it. So then you'll come up with a story to justify why you not even try, right? So then I tell the kids is like, anytime you feel like that you have an obstacle in front of you, instead of telling you a story that's going to keep you from overcoming it, look at that obstacle as a challenge. And every time you start looking at those obstacles as challenges, then you will be able to accomplish a lot more than you ever thought was possible in life, right?
That's right.
So and then the beauty of the lessons that we teach is, we use those words, right? Like closer over more, changing your environment, making good excuses, asymmetry to upside. So then if they're having conversations with the parents can just say 3 words, and it kind of brings them back to that situation and say, oh, okay, you're right. Maybe I am making a good excuse. Or maybe I do need to look at my environment. Or maybe I'm chasing more instead of getting closer. So they don't have to go through a full-blown lecture. You could just say 3 words and they're like, oh, okay, you're right. And then the kids come up to that, that solution themselves instead of being told what the solution is. They do it. Okay.
That is the way. That is the way. I was going to say that. However, I bet sometimes these parents are like, Jay, what do you teach my kid? They're using it on me.
These are not the children you're looking for.
Yeah. Why is my kid telling me I got a great excuse?
Oh yeah. That's I've been called out by my kids also. So
that's great.
The fact is you're trying and you're human and you're going to make mistakes, right? And my children will call me on it a lot. They call me on a lot because I'm super imperfect, and we laugh about it afterwards because I'm pliable. Sometimes I'm in a bad mood and they're like, they know not to call me on it. But that's the thing, is like my girls are 18, my son is 22, and they're adults, and they're allowed to. I don't parent them anymore. I mentor them. And I was talking about it today at the beach. It's like, I don't ask where my girls are going at night. I just wait up for them. And then afterwards, it's like, did you have a good time? And if they want to tell me about it, they tell me about it, because I don't want to misuse that trust, or my power, my control. I give them the opportunity to go out and do things and experience their life, because they've had that opportunity throughout their lives to do it. And I've never really had that discussion with them about money. So I'm interested in learning more about your program, how it starts. You know, you said is it for young adults as well? Do you do that as well?
Well, right now it's 10. I mean, I have kids that are 10 to 19 in the program. So
Okay.
it's mostly, and a lot of the 19-year-olds are kids that started when they're 17 and they're still in it. So um, they still attend because they see value in it, because now they're in a different stage in life. Some of them are in college now, and we're always teaching a new concept every month. So then they just how can they apply those concepts in whatever situation they are currently. So it helps. All these concepts that we teach is stuff that adults can benefit from. Is just being taught to kids at an early age, because the way I look at it is that kids are going to make mistakes no matter what. But our thing is, can they get back on path quicker? How can they get back on path quicker? If they have the principles and frameworks, and then if they have the operating systems to be able to get back on path, then we're okay. But if they completely steer off path because they don't even know what they did wrong, then that's something that is a concern for a lot of parents. Is that that's the way I look at it, because I know my son, my daughter, they're still going to make mistakes no matter what. I'm still making mistakes, but we're able to course correct much quicker because we have these things, these tools in our operating system.
And it changes it's to change the relationship with mistakes, right? So mistake doesn't mean anybody's a failure. Mistake means there's something to learn here, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So all those things. I think was also the beauty of the program is I have a 3 and soon to be 4 and 2-year-old, and God willing, we'll have a couple more before we stop. Is that having somebody else teach the lesson, right? Because I know, and you guys can testify to this better than I can, that my child will only listen so much to me, probably in certain areas. And this was very clear to me when I was watching it as a podcast I follow about some these professional weightlifters, and they're really big into health. They do a lot of coaching. And guy was talking about how his kid is not into lifting weights at all. I was like, wow, that's amazing. But of course, it makes sense. He's not going to listen to his dad about weightlifting, right? That's kind of how that works, right? But he's going to listen to somebody else probably before he listens to dad. And so that's probably going to be true for me with my kids, and money. Who knows? Either way, my point is having a program that it's independent of the parent, that kids can learn from other kids too. Sounds like, I think that's a genius way to do it for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think there's a research done that kids are biologically wired to think that parents don't know what they're talking about in their teenage years. And then the aha moments don't hit until their 20s. They're like, oh, now that I see what they're talking about, now it all makes sense. Right?
I probably didn't get those until I was in my, I think, late 30s, actually.
Yeah. So,
my son's away at college right now, and he often calls me or texts me and says, remember that time that you told me to blah blah blah? I totally understand why you said that now.
Yeah.
And it's exactly right. I never coached my kid. I was an assistant coach on his baseball team. I never coached him. I always had other people do it because he would never listen to me. And it's just one of those dynamics where I was a blundering idiot until you realize that no, I'm just a regular guy just trying to do the best I can to be the best dad I can, and that is what it is. And it's nice to see him acknowledge what I tried to do as a dad when he was younger, even though he pushed me off, and it's satisfying now.
Yeah.
So
and I wanted to, before I forget to mention it, the reason why I wanted to bring Jay on is I had an opportunity to go to a mastermind in Phoenix back in November. A good friend of mine invited me to this mastermind that he helps put together. And shout out to Randy, wherever you're at. And
what up, Randy?
And then the gentleman who gave the workshop, what's his name again, Jay?
Nick Peterson.
Nick Peterson, yes, golly. Anyways, shout out to Nick Peterson. That was a tremendous event. I should next time they have one, I'll probably see if we can get out and invite you, because just meet some amazing people. And that's where I met Jay. And what was really cool about it, because when I heard you talk about the program, I was like, wow, that's a really great idea. And then I didn't know you guys were going to do this. They gave you an opportunity to bring some of the kids were there with their parents. Some of the kids, I suppose, who were first in your first cohort or whatever. got on stage and started talking about all these concepts and what their experience was, I was like, wow, if somebody put me into something like this when I was 15, 16, and 17, oh my Lanto, how much more farther ahead would I be? Like, this is really cool. And that's what really excited me about talking to you. So I really appreciate you coming on. I was curious. You said you have 19-year-olds in there. They start when they're 17. So you're going about 2 years running this, right? Has it evolved a lot since you first started? I'm guessing it has. What's that look like compared to when we started to where you're at now?
Yeah, this is my fourth year. So a lot of those kids that you saw on the stage were in the program when they started when they were 15, 16, and now they're in college.
Got it.
But
And they're
yeah,
still coming back.
so yeah, I mean, now they're at a different stage, right? Now they're more into the networking side of it. So I connect them with mentors and invite them to networking events because now they're at a different place. And then every now and then they'll come in, and actually a couple of the kids are actually want to coach the younger kids and want to join the program and as a side thing. So they
Right.
want to actually come in and coach because by coaching others they can help retain it themselves, right?
Right.
So, and they're all about enhancing their skills and knowledge, which is amazing. So it's really cool to see kids that are that receptive, that they
Yeah.
stay connected that long in the program. So,
And is it, Jay, do you like graduate them to a higher level, or is it just kind of like, how do you know, like, are there tests? Like, how do you know somebody's moving forward? How do you know that the lessons being received and integrated?
yeah. So the way the programs for someone new coming in, we have a lesson. We teach a lesson. I'll teach a new concept. I'll share my experience, real life scenarios, give them a little bit of action plan, and at the end of it, there's a couple of questions that they answer, where hey, what did you get out of the lesson? Condense your thoughts into 6 words about the lesson, and that's a form of journaling, right? So then I'll take all the lessons and all their thoughts and I'll send them to them. I'm like, here, take a look at all the things that you've written and send to the parents too.
Oh, cool.
So because some of the kids are really quiet, they don't really talk much, but they have a lot of stuff in their head that they get out on paper, and then you're like, oh, they're getting it. They're just not very vocal on the calls, but they are really. I mean, it's really amazing to see what's in some of the kids' heads that because you're like, are they really grasping it? Or am I just going in one ear out the other? And then when they see what they wrote, you're like, wow, okay, this is working. The parents can see results through the conversations because their kids start bringing up topics, they're asking questions on a deeper level that they never have before, and that's what parents want. They want to, because I don't know if you've ever asked your kids how's your day at school, and they're like come back with fine, good, or okay, and you're just like, I know there's more to it, but yeah, when the kids are the ones initiating and they're sharing things that you never would have thought they would have or was even in their going on in their lives, that's what the parents value, right? And then for example, my son, when he started, he was very, very quiet. And that's why I was very motivated to get him into a program like this, because how do I break him out of his shell? And now he's got his own business. He's researching stocks, investing, trying to figure out ways to get passive income, so he's doing all these things that wouldn't have been possible if he wasn't in a program like this, because just the way he was so sheltered and quiet, and now he's breaking out and just doing all sorts of things, which is really good to see.
So, and how old is your son?
He just turned 18.
Okay, 18. And he's got a side hustle. He's got his own little business going. Does he work? He's going to college, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, so he has a little video editing business that he's doing,
nice.
and now he's taking money that he's earning from that into and putting into stocks, investing, looking at options and all sorts of stuff now. So he's trying a lot of new things, but he's learning it. So we talk about frequency, intensity, purpose. Got to put the reps in and master the skill first before you can see the rewards, right?
Yeah.
So he's putting the reps in and mastering the skills, which is all I could ask for.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah. Anything like what's it look like going forward? Are you? I mean, it sounds like you're still taking new kids and you're still trying to expand it. And is that really what the plan is for the future?
Yeah, I mean, I love the in-person events that I do here locally, because I get to, it's a lot more engaging and interactive.
Yeah.
But I've noticed that once all the people that go to the in-person are moving into the virtual because they want to learn more. So the kids, it's surprising what the kids are capable of if you give them the opportunity, because sometimes you project your own internal beliefs about what they're capable or what they will even actually do. Oh, my kids would never do that. And then you kind of already discount them before they even take that chance or make that move.
Sorry about that.
No worries. We're good.
Yeah. My I don't know if it was my side or the server side, so apologize for that. But you were saying that you don't discount the kids anymore because you let them see where they can break or get to a certain point, right? And then
You got a story behind that, or is there an example you can, or experience you want to
Yeah,
share?
yeah. There's just definitely a story, because I remember I was in a group chat, and there was someone that suggested that my son do an NFT project. This is before I started the program, and my very first thought that came to my mind was, "There's no way my son would do that." And after reflecting on it a little bit, I was like, you know what? I'm the problem. Like, I didn't even give him a chance or opportunity. I didn't even have a conversation with him, and I already discounted his ability to do it.
Mm.
And a lot of parents do that because you kind of just, because they wouldn't do it themselves, they automatically assume the kids wouldn't, or for whatever reasons that they have, right? Their biases and so on. So that was probably one of the factors that led me to create this program, was when that happened, and I kind of reflected on it. Nick mentioned during
Is
one of
Nick
his calls.
Peterson?
Nick Peterson, yeah, he mentioned during one of his calls, he said it's much easier to build strong children than fix broken adults. And he happened to say that quote about the same time that I discounted my son's ability to do something. And I was like, you know what? That kind of triggered, and that was actually my starting point to building this.
Yeah, that's true. I find myself saying some of those things sometime already,
so,
unfortunately.
so you're not only profiting off of this and it's your livelihood now, but you're enriching your life by learning how to be a better person, a better leader, and a better parent.
Yeah, it
So,
sounds awfully fulfilling for sure.
yeah, that's
Absolutely. I
great.
mean, it's when we talk about asymmetric bets to the upside, this is all upside for me, right? Because
Mm.
not only do I get to teach the kids, but it holds me accountable to make sure that I'm applying these things in my life.
Yeah,
Um, and there's a saying that your life plan should exceed your lifespan. So what kind of impact? One of as you get older, I'm approaching 50 now. I'm like, well, what kind of impact am I going to leave in this world? And I remember going with one of my coaches. I had a long list of things I wanted to do, and I remember when him saying something. He's like, "Hey, whatever you choose right now is going to be the wrong thing. The right thing will come to you." And fortunately, you know, the all through the journaling, through conversations, everything just came together, and this just made sense. Like, it just hit every angle, every button that I needed.
And it wasn't the wrong thing.
It wasn't the wrong thing. I mean, like, it started off as a hobby. It started micro stepped into it, and it became my full time thing, because it just seeing the results and seeing the impact it's having, it just made sense. And
yeah.
20 years in the tax business, it's definitely a lot more fulfilling. You know, so.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That is awesome. So, networking events, but how else do you get the word out? Do you go to churches or schools or community centers and put the word out there? Do talks there?
So yeah, for most of it, just referrals from the parents. Like, I really hadn't had to do any marketing, or just they're telling everybody, which is nice. But now we're starting to do in-person events, workshops, where they get a little taste of the cash flow game, our concepts, and the kids the kids are the ones that are telling, the parents don't have to even tell the kids that they want to do it. The kids want to join it. So that's it. I'm not a salesperson. I could tell you that, right? I'm not when it comes to sales. I'm probably like the worst on the scale of 1 to 10, but I haven't had to sell. So eventually I want to obviously, um, scale this to another level so I could reach more kids. So I'm starting to do more speaking engagements and more in-person workshops.
So that was where you're going. This is actually a great question. You ever think about franchising this, or I'm not sure, like what's your max load? Could you do 100 kids and you're at maybe 25-30%, or have you figured that out yet?
I'm actually working with a company that's helping me possibly set up a franchise model, but I'm not. See, one thing I don't like to do is set up a roadmap. Like as far as looking way too far down the road, I'm still trying to make sure that I'm micro stepping my way into it. Now, if I wasn't financially set and I needed this to blow up like really really fast, then I might be pushing it a little bit more. But fortunately, I'm in a good financial position where I don't need to. So I'm just going with time and randomness to make sure that as opportunities come, which even though I'm not looking for opportunities, they just come in, they just kind of fall in my lap. So, which is a good thing, so time and
Sounds like
randomness.
the right path. I mean, if that's how it's going, it sounds like you're on the right path, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're financially secure. You're fulfilling your life's passions, and you're helping people. So, I mean, that would be just a great talk, just to talk about that. Like, what made you desire to fulfill that passion versus the same corporate structure, day in and day out, the same mindset that you learn in B school.
I always joke about that. If there was a book on what not to do in life, I'd probably be able to write it.
I don't know, man. It sounds like you were pretty successful.
I've made just about every mistake you possibly can make through my life, and I was an angry kid growing up. I wasn't able to control my emotions too much. There's a lot of things that when you start learning all these new things, you start looking back at reflecting on your life in the past and decisions that you made, the way you behaved, and it just that same thought that you mentioned earlier, you're like, if I would have known this sooner, and that just keeps coming back in your mind, and obviously you can't do anything about your past, but I'm like,
Nope.
hey, how can I make sure my son and my daughter doesn't go down the same path that I did, right? I already know that they're going to make mistakes, but I just want to make sure they don't completely steer off, because I was making the same mistakes over and over again. I was in a tax business for 20 years, and I was always trying to find the next thing to get me out of the tax business, because it was so draining, and I was making emotional decisions right after tax season when I'm like, oh, I'm done with tax business. I need to find something, and it was usually not the right decision, because it was the same rhythm every year, and I was falling for it every year. I didn't even see that I was doing the same thing until I noticed that industry rhythms of the tax business is going to drive you to do make emotional decisions that right afterwards, every year, right? And but I realized that I would have done so many things differently. Like I wouldn't have, honed in on that emotional, need to open or do something else when I could have, just say, okay, hey, this is the industry rhythm. It's I know this is the way you're gonna feel. I'm not gonna, fall for that this time. I opened a lot of businesses throughout the years. I could tell you that much.
And not all, and I'm guessing by the way you're telling the story, not a lot of those businesses stayed open.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, every business that you open, it's taking more of your time and energy.
Sure.
I'm over here talking about how the tax business is draining all my time and energy, and I'm opening more businesses that's taking more of my time and energy. And then when you don't go 100% into something, then the tax business is always easy for me to fall back on. So you know, obviously you can't run a new business for 6 months out of the year either. So,
Right.
Yeah, you can do like a summer and fall bakery company. It's the only time that you're making cookies and cakes is in the summer and the fall.
you know,
It just doesn't work.
yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is a fantastic program. Like I said, when I first heard you talk, I was like, wow, that's really cool. That seems really neat. And then when I saw the experience that those kids shared, I was like, clearly based on results, based on the experience I'm hearing and how some of those kids just were able to carry themselves, frankly, and explain the results that they had experienced themselves. I was like, wow, that is fantastic stuff. This is a great program, and any kid
Yeah.
or any parent and kid who could do it should do it if it fits for them, for sure. So yeah, I'm a fan, man. So I wanted to spread the gospel and spread the news.
Yeah,
And if you're listening on the channel and you happen to catch this and you want to put your kid in this program or at least learn more, Jay, what can they do?
Yeah, what's the first step? What's that look like, Jay?
Yeah, they could take a look at our website. It's basecaseandbuild.com. You could, you know, there's all the information about some lessons that we teach, what differentiates us from traditional education system, and so on. You could also message me directly. My email is j@basecaseandbuild.com, and I'll give you a ton of information and get you going.
Outstanding. That is awesome. Well, I wish you even more luck. Yeah, but you're the kind of person that makes your own luck, I think. You make your own fate, and I think you're doing good because I love to hear stories about this where it's not just about making corporate type money. It's about doing the right thing for people, and you're helping other people. And
Yeah, for sure.
Does my heart good. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Right on. Thanks, Jay.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot.